Hey everyone, I'm Board Game Brody with Everything Board Games, and I was sent a prototype copy of Margraves of Valeria. This is a deck builder worker placement resource management game set in the very popular Valeria kingdom. You play as a Margrave, defending the borders of the province. You'll be commanding knights to move locations, slay monsters near cities, hire citizens to help, ship goods, and build towers to gain the most influence over the 4 different guilds. Let's talk about the setup real quick. The board is laid out as you see, and you will shuffle and place the citizen cards on the top of this board. Depending on the number of players playing the game, you will add additional citizen cards. The more players, the more cards. These cards can be gained during the game and will be added to a player's deck to use and also count as an icon for the certain guild shown in the top right. Place a knight meeple on each city of the main board. The remaining 12 will be placed on the bottom right corner of the track board. No one player will control a specific knight. You will control the knight that you have if it's on your player board, or if there's one in your current location. These here are the privilege tiles. Depending on the number of players, you will add additional tiles to the game. After shuffling them, place 3 of each type on the board. The Roman numeral 2 tiles are stronger than the 1 tiles. The tiles that have a scroll can be used anytime during your turn, and the tiles with an hourglass is used for in-game scoring. Place the monster cards in their designated sections. To do this, you will first find the boss card of the group. This card will be placed face down on the board, matching its layer. The area card is then placed on top. This card is the card that doesn't have a monster on it, but it matches the layer icon and matches the paths on the board. You will then shuffle the remaining 4 cards and place them face up on top of the area card. You will do the same thing for the 4 different layers on the board. When a monster is defeated, it will be placed at the bottom of the pile. After defeating 4 of the monsters, this area card is revealed and it will be discarded, and the cards will be reshuffled together, including the boss card, and placed face up again. Place the resources in each corner of the board. The number of players will dictate how many resources that are used in the game, as the number is limited when playing. Place the gold in the center of the board, as it will be used as a bank. Each player will have a player board and their color along with the components that match the player's color and a red shield. Place the red shield on the 0. This will track the player's strength, and it is used to defeat monsters. You will pay the number of strength on your track to defeat the monsters. When gaining strength, you will move your marker to the right, and when using it, you will move it to the left. The 4 towers will be placed on your player board, taking up storage spots to hold those resources. Each player will then take a gem from the board. This will leave 1 gem on the top right location on the main board. Place your ship in this location to start, and place 1 star on each guild track. This will be the track that you will work on to gain more points for a certain type of guild that you might be collecting or influencing. Each player will start with 4 starter cards that are the same for each player, and a reference card that will help you with icons in the game. 4 start cards are dealt out to each player. You will choose one and pass the others to the player to the left. Doing this, you will receive 3 cards from your neighbor to your right. From these, you will pick another one, and you will do this until you have 3 cards. The last card is discarded. You will then gather your starting bonuses that can consist of money, strength, resources, privilege tiles, or even a new citizen card. These cards can now be discarded from the game, as you won't be using them anymore. The main focus of the game is to move your influence up on the 4 different guilds during the game, because at game end, wherever your influence is will dictate how many points each guild icon will be worth. These guild icons will be gathered from citizen cards and from cities on the map where you build a tower. In some instances, you might also receive a privilege tile that has one of these icons. There are some other ways to score more points in the game, but I will save that for when I talk about in-game scoring. So on your turn, you will choose from 4 different actions. There is a pennant action, where you use the icons on the top left of the card. There is the citizen power action, where you will use the text on the bottom of the card. There is the recall action, where you take back your cards and hire a new citizen and gain a new card to your deck. And lastly, there is the build action, where you will build a tower in the location where your Margrave is at. Let's start with the pin-in action. If the card shows gold with a number, then you will take that much gold from the supply in the middle of the board. If it shows a cube like this, then you will take resources of the stated number. Each resource is located on the corners of the board. The gem is not considered a main resource and cannot be taken when this icon is shown. Stone, wood, and magic are your main resources. There is no limit to gold, but everything else will need to fit in your storage area. One for each slot, including towers and knights. If you don't have room for any additional resources, then you will need to choose what gets tossed and gain whatever is coming in. The red shield will track your strength and moves to the right the number listed on the shield. You can never have more than 8 strength, and the strength is not worth any points at the end of the game. If you're using a card and it has this Margrave icon that is black with an arrow, this means that you're going to move your Margrave from your current location to a neighboring one using any of the white roads that connect them. Whenever your Margrave moves into a location, you activate the location power. These are listed on the bottom of each city. For example, here you would gain 1 stone, here you would gain 1 wood, and here you would gain 1 magic. Here you will gain 1 strength, here you will pay 1 gold and gain 1 of the 3 main resources. Here you will pay 3 of the resources to gain 1 gem. Here you will perform a shipping action. You can discard any number of resources to move that many spaces. You gain the reward listed on each space that you pass. When you pass the icon with the Roman numeral 1 or 2 on it, then you will take one of the 3 privilege tiles shown on the track board. These privilege tiles can be awarded anytime during your turn if it's a grant, but if it shows an hourglass, then it will be kept for in-game scoring. This track here can also go on forever as it's a loop and you can use it as many times as you would like. Lastly, here you will pay the number of gold listed underneath the citizen card that you want to hire. This card will go into your hand. Another possible icon shown for when you're doing a pin-in action is to deploy a knight. You can either move a knight from your player board to the location that you currently are at and take the location action, or you can move any knights in your current location to any of the neighboring cities using the white paths and taking the action in those locations where the knight stops. The knights can only be moved 1 movement step to any of the neighboring cities. If you don't want to use your pin-in action, instead you can activate the citizen power text on one of your citizen cards. Let me go over the starting cards and I will leave you to explore the other citizen cards. The merchant lets you gain 1 main resource and 4 gold. Then all players may pay 1 gold to gain a choice of one of the main resources. The alchemist lets you gain 5 gold from the supply. Then you pay 1 gold to gain a main resource, and then all players gain 1 gold for each tower that they have built on the board. The paladin lets you gain a magic and a strength. You may then slay a monster that is adjacent to the location where your Margrave is currently at. This is shown by the brown trails. If you can get from your location to a monster using a brown trail, then you can slay that monster. So to slay the monster, you will pay the strength to the value of that monster. If the monster has a magic value above the strength, then you will return the number of magic tokens to the board and spend that strength to slay the monster. To spend strength, you can use your player board and slide your strength tracker 1 space to the left for each strength that you want to spend, or you can place any number of knights in your current location or from your player board and place them standing up in the hero tomb. For each knight that you add, you will gain 1 strength to slay the monster. Once you slay the monster, you will take the rewards listed on the bottom of the card and the influence shown. Influence is a big part of the game, and whenever you gain influence, you will choose which guild you would like to influence on the track. You will move the star token 1 space to the right, or if you gain more influence, you could move it many spaces. Or you could even split which guilds you would like to influence. If you ever cross over a brown line that has a gold amount connected to it, you will need to pay that much gold to be able to progress. Even though every time you pass these lines you're paying gold, you will also get a bonus. When you pass the first 2 threshold lines, you will also take one of the 1 privilege tiles. The 3rd threshold line allows you to take one of the tiles from either the 1 or the 2 mark, and the 4th and 5th threshold lines allow you to take one of the tiles from the 2 privilege tiles. After taking your reward and influence, you will take the monster card that you just slayed and place it face down on the bottom of its stack. Now let's go back to your starter cards. The last one is the Captain, and it lets you gain 1 knight and 1 strength. Then you can slay a monster, and then all players can pay 1 gold to gain 1 knight from the supply. We have now covered the pennant action and the citizen power action. Now let's talk about the last 2 actions, which is the recall power and the build tower actions. For these actions, you will be discarding a card from your hand face down. For the recall power action, you will first discard a citizen card from the citizen line. You will then pick up all of your citizen cards that you've played that are sitting to the right side of your player board. And finally, you will then be able to pay gold listed beneath the citizen card that you would like to hire. Now let's talk about the build tower action. And just like the recall power action, you're going to discard a card from your hand face down. You will then pay 1 stone, 1 wood, 1 magic, and 1 gem from your storage area on your player board, and you will place a tower from your player board to one of the 3 build slots in the city where your Margrave is currently located. If there are no more build slots, then you cannot build there. If you have already built a tower in that city, then you cannot build another one there. After building the tower, you will then gain the reward shown in the slot where you built your tower. And you will also receive 3 influence, which can be split between any of the guilds. Now those are the 4 different actions that you will be choosing from on your turn. At the end of every turn, you will check the hero tomb. If a player filled any row or column, then they will gain the reward listed, and the knights will be laid down. If the tomb ever fills up completely, then move all the knights to the supply area underneath the tomb and add a knight to any city on the board that has no knight. You will then refill the privilege tiles that have been taken, and then refill the citizen line if there are any empty slots. In-game is triggered by one of 3 things. When a player builds their last tower, when the citizen line doesn't have enough cards to replenish when they need to, or when the prestige tiles don't have enough tiles to replenish when they need to. All players will take equal turns, and so when game end triggers, you will then finish up that round that you are currently on. Final score is done by multiplying the number of points that you have on your influence counter for each of the guilds times the number of icons that you have of that guild in your citizen deck or in the cities that you build a tower in. Some privilege tiles have banners on them. Banners are scored by multiplying the number of different banners by themselves. For example, if you happen to gain 5 different colored banners, you would multiply 5 by 5 to score 25 points. At the end of the game, each gem in your storage is worth 2 points. 3 main resources is worth 1 point, and 5 gold is worth 1 point. You will add up all your points, and the winner is the player with the highest number of points. Now there are so many good things in this game. First, the game is a little heavier than any of the previous games. It's played within the Valeria Kingdom universe, and the art is done by the Miko, which helps bring back memories of killing monsters in Valeria Car Kingdoms. Even the components are similar, as the money and the first player marker have been seen and used in Villages of Valeria. Again, this could be because this is a prototype copy, but I think it's awesome that these things overlap. So here's a list of things that I really like about the game. There are 4 main actions. This makes the game simple, yet still become complex with your decisions. But you will only be choosing between 4 different types of actions. The game includes the 3 main resources used in past Valeria games, but also adds a new addition. the gems. The gems are more valuable, and it takes 3 of the other resources to make a gem. I like that the game uses limited resources, especially how the gems are very limited compared to the other resources. I don't think that running out of resources is a huge problem, but a player could play more defensively by taking all of a certain resources so that the other players can't use them, and if they can't, for example, get a gem, then they will never build a tower. The number of cities on the board seem just right. You can get around the board pretty quick, but also causes you to plan where you want to go. I like the recall action because you need to eliminate a citizen card that probably shows an icon that another player wants, and then you pay to acquire the one that works perfectly for you. If you control what citizen cards are in the citizen line by knowing which guild icons are on there, then you can get the cards that you want and take away the cards that the other players might want. Whenever you take this action, you are also taking 2 cards out of this deck, and you might not realize, but you possibly can trigger the end game by doing this. The game has multi-use cards. As you can see, you can use the top left for the pennant action, but you can also use the text for the citizen power action. So they can do 2 different actions. This is nice, but it's not anything super amazing. The game uses 4 different guilds to influence, and there's no way to get all the influence markers from all of them at the end of the game, so you will have to focus on 1 to 3 different guilds. And you should always not care about one of them and try to discard those from the citizen line because someone else probably want them. Also, the cities with icons on them have 4 cities that have 2 of the same icons, which are great when you're collecting a certain type, and 4 cities that have a mixture of 2 different guild icons. You should probably shoot to build one of your towers in the guild that you have the highest influence in the city that has the double guild icon of that guild. Then more than likely, you will build another tower on a city with the same guild icon as that tower that has another icon of possibly your second highest guild that you influence. When I've played so far, I've focused on 2 guilds only and have done pretty well at acquiring a card or a city with that guild that will gain me 3, 4, or even 5 points depending on how high I can move that influence marker compared to a guild that I have at the 1 or 2 mark. Also, for this reason, it wouldn't be silly to buy a citizen card at the 6 gold mark. You need to do what's best for you, and sometimes that's not settling for the cheapest cards. The in-game scoring is great, as those multipliers will reward you for your hard work moving your influence marker up the track. Watch out for that player that starts collecting banners. They can cash out pretty good points by collecting those. The game seemed pretty balanced. While playing the game, I have seen players that have focused on using mostly pennant actions while playing the game, while other players might use mostly the citizen power actions while they're playing the game. And there's others that kind of have a mix of the 2. And every time the points have been pretty close and there have been no runaway winners, yet everyone's doing kind of a different action. So there is no best way to play the game besides making your own plan with what you are faced with and choosing. Now, I like how you don't have to visit the corners of the board to actually get those resources. To get these resources, you can use a knight when you are in a neighboring city to move him over to take the action. You can use a power from a citizen card, or sometimes you get an opportunity to buy one for a coin. Sometimes even that's on another player's turn. You can also use a privilege tile that you've gained anytime during your turn. These privilege tiles are great, and sometimes you won't have room, but you won't need to spend your tile until you decide to have room and can receive the benefits of it. You have many possibilities to get resources and money to use during your turn, and you don't have to every single time visit the corners of the board to get them. The planning in the game is very fun to organize, but not too complex to hurt your brain. So you will need to plan resources to build your towers. Then you will need to be in the city with the guild icons that you want, or a city with a certain benefit to build it in. You need to plan to have money to hire citizens or to move up on the influence track, passing through the different thresholds. You need to plan not to run out of cards, and you need to plan to get the icons of the certain guilds that you are the furthest on the influence track. I'm super excited about this game, and as we know, Daily Magic Games have continued with many expansions of their other games, and I wonder, how will they do that with this game? Now, after mentioning everything that I say is awesome about the game, and I do think the game is awesome, let me mention the two things that are bad, or the two things that I think that could be improved. And that's the money pile in the middle of the board. So it seems like the money just rolls all over, and it's hard to kind of just put that. So it might be not a big deal to just put that on the side of the board and use your own money pile, so that way, you're not losing the money in the art or anything. So the other thing that is hard to understand in the game is that you have to discard a card on every single action that you take in the game. And many times that I've played this, players have used all their cards where they have none left in their hand and forget that they need a card in their hand to discard to take the recall action, to take their cards back into their hands. And so what happens is it's really hard to go back and rewind the game because so much stuff has happened. And so what you have to remember is that even though you want to pick your cards back up and take them back into your hand, you need a card in your hand to do that. And so you need to make sure that everyone has at least one card in their hand at all times, unless at that time that they have one card, they are performing that action. Or if you do have one card left in your hand, you're almost going to have to recall your cards back unless you're buying or hiring a citizen card to use that card to do the same on your next turn. But I love the game. Again, this is Margraves of Valeria by Daily Magic Games. If you like what you see, then go back it.